segment to encourage you, because we always, at the end of the show, we always plug our Discord and the email. We always plug that. But I'd like to take some time at the end of each show to read some comments that are fun to read.
When we have them.
And when we have interesting comments, if we have any. Hopefully they're not. We don't get hate mail, but there's one on our video that I did about Once Upon a Forest. There's two, which we mentioned when we talked about Once Upon a Forest. Our friend Jake from the Arate Media podcast, which, as an aside, we were on the Arate Media podcast last week. You can go check that out. It is a big buttload of podcasts. There's so much podcast for you to check out. Almost nearly 5 hours of podcast.
In case this wasn't enough for you,
but
we did more.
He left a comment which said, I coined a term because of this movie, Once Upon a Forest, dubbed the Once Upon a Forest effect. It's when you remember something from your past, it's awesome, but when you watch it as an adult, it's awful. Which is what I referenced in that episode, in that video. When I talked about him in this video I wanted to stitch. I wanted to be like, you're wrong, Jake. It was a good movie, actually. It was not. It was not a good movie. But now to get to the one that, the reason why I wanted to do this little segment. And Jordan, you're going to have to strap in. Because this is this is an essay. I assume you didn't read this beforehand.
No.
So feel
probably
free.
Probably a good thing.
So feel free to cut in anytime you have something you want to add. So, comment from Chopstick Girl 241. I do remember this movie. I had the VHS and I watched it regularly, although I think I watched Fern Gully 1 and 2 more. To clear up some confusion, which animals do and don't wear clothes or speak is actually not due to size. It's due to danger level. Let me explain. Because it also goes into what you said about the directors not trusting kids in the 90s. Moles, mice, rabbits, etc. are considered prey animals or herbivores. Crows appear beautiful and intelligent, birds that often appear helpful to humans. Owls are also beautiful intelligence, but they would look terrifying to a rodent because it's trying to eat. Because of this, the owl is not considered a, quote, person. The mice and the moles and badgers are still, quote, people. Animal people, but still people. So the filmmakers put living circumstances that humans can identify with these anthropomorphized animals to make it easy for the kids to understand that all these animals are, quote, good. Crows are not an animal that most children are afraid of, unless it's close to Halloween. So that is also why they are part of the good animals. Though on the one hand, the black coating of the birds could be seen as an introduction to another way of life. All the kids seem surprised hearing singing and gospel. However, on the other hand, harsher reality is just some casual racism. But owls can be scary to kids. A big mysterious bird that only comes out at night. You can hear its eerie hoots for miles around, but you never may see it. You may never want to. Basically, mystery plus unknown equals fear, and fear equals bad. And that's why the owl is not considered a person. I'm not sure it can be called an antagonist, but it seems to be more of an obstacle on their journey than anything. Natural obstacle as well, because most of the kids are among the owl's buffet choices. So the owl actively tries to kill the animals. The owl... actively tries to put the animal twice. Oh, the owl actually tries to kill the animal kids, and for kids who are supposed to relate to kids in the film, maybe not by personality, but more so by age, the intention is to make them feel terrified. Now, that does have some logic, but it is a giant silly mess when you actually look at nature and realize that most of these prey animals are omnivore. It's more complicated than that, but that's the simplicity. And at least one of them should have definitely tried to eat the other. But here's something fun that no one remembers. The badger kid is the only one to have her parents get immersed. I assume she means maced. But is also the only one to not actually join the other kids on their journey. Narratively, it makes sense to have a plot device. The sick badger girl as a starting point for our hero's journey. However, also narratively speaking, it also makes no sense to shit all over this little badger. That's so funny. I've never actually read this full comment. She starts as a happy kid learning kid school. Then her parents die. Then she gets sick to the point of almost dying because she got fucking gassed. And then her friends come back and get to reunite with their family while she arrives only to find that her parents are dead. Did I mention she's only supposed to be like 3 years old? Like I said, I know the other kids are also young and went through some shit, but at least they get to go on an adventure, feel important, become heroes, and get a happy ending. This little badger girl is basically pointless suffering. I guess you could argue that having some lasting death would make it heavier to make the message sink in for kids. But considering that they played whimsical with the setting and gray with the morals, you could argue that the dead badger parents isn't actually impactful because we didn't know these characters, we didn't care about them, and their only reason is to exist is to make a badger an orphan. That is completely true. Hell, cut to the other three and make the badger girl the main character. It makes more sense. She goes through the same gas attack as the other. Their teacher is her uncle, and then we start to see the journey by the badger leaving a cure for her parents, and the movie can proceed relatively unchanged. I mean, you could write a better story from that starting premise alone, but this comment would be an actual damn good book if it goes on longer. Yeah. But one last thing. Literally no idea why they cast the dad. Yeah, so that's what he's in. So remember how we were like the badger's played by a famous person who sings a song for some reason? He was in the Phantom of the Opera. I didn't get shot out of my birth father into the late 90s, so I didn't get shot out of my birth father until the late 90s, so it wasn't technically the target demographic when it came out, but I can't imagine too many kids back there knew about Phantom of the Opera, let alone the actor. He definitely has star power, but yeah, it's so true. Like, it's one of those things when you're watching that movie that you can tell he's famous, and he's truly the only one who gives a shit. But that's very fascinating. I would certainly argue that you could have maybe made the owl a bit more clear. But you're right. They make a valid point. It's so funny. And the comment started off sounding like they were defending the movie, and then as it went on, it became progressively more negative.
Yeah, they could have. The thing is that they could have gone the route of making the owl he's trying to trick them and manipulate them and make him like a illusion or like a representative of like an untrustworthy adult that's trying to lead them astray and lead them into a danger because he wants to eat them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if the lesson is supposed to be that like there are some big things out there that you can't try, like, 'cause you got to think about this of like, what's the lesson that these filmmakers are trying to make for this children's movie,
right?
And if the lesson is supposed to be that big things can be scary, like you could make it like a manipulative, like it's trying to trick them into its nest to eat them. And like it still talks, and then the world still follows the logic of all the animal talks,
right?
And some of them are just bad.
And also the response that the badger girl, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. That's so true in that she's a plot device. We're supposed to, like, the thing is hinging on us caring about her dying when we don't, and her parents being dead have no narrative impact on us because they're dead and we don't know them. It would be better, not necessarily to cut out the other forest kids, but swap them. So like have one of like the parents die. So like the badger girl go, the mouse girl stay behind and have her get sick from going in and saving the badger girl. Like, so she goes.
I would just raise it. I would raise the stakes personally and make it where all of the parents get gassed except for the teacher uncle dude, and the kids have to go find cures for their parents. So then there's stakes for all of them.
I mean,
they all could lose their parents.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that would absolutely work. But I mean, I think if we're just talking minor tweaks, yeah, you just swap like the mouse girl and the badger girl, and then the badger girl's arc is she has to learn to be brave, and then she gets the thing to save the mouse girl, and it's like, oh, I need to learn to be like the mouse girl, Abigail, her name. I need to learn to be like Abigail, and then that's the lesson. Because like you're right, otherwise like all the stakes of the movie hinge on you caring about a character you don't really know, because the movie doesn't have time for you to know them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say, like, you almost in that instance, because you don't have time to know them, you almost have to raise the stakes. So it's like the entire village gets gassed,
Yeah.
and only the children, because the children are off in the meadow, like down the way playing or whatever, they don't get gassed.
And
And the uncle or like the uncle lives like just outside the area, and that's why they all don't get gassed. Whereas the rest of the town, full of people, do, and they're the only ones that can save all of them
and
because they
it's
didn't get gassed, and the uncle has to go in and look after them all and make sure they all survive long enough.
yeah.
Like, it at that point you don't need to know all of them. It's an entire town full of people. You don't want to see all those people die.
And my thing is like when you really think about it, all those parents being alive at the end, it's just like, wait, so how they waited, like, I guess they had to wait multiple days for it to be clean, I guess maybe is the idea. But yeah, the main theme with those animated movies, It and We're Back, both needed to be longer. That would be my thing.
Yeah.
And all these problems we're pointing out would be
Which
better
clearly,
with 20 to 30 minutes, which clearly movie makers realize, filmmakers realize.
I was just gonna say,
because yeah,
yeah.
a kids' movies got longer. Like most people agree that 90 minutes is kind of the perfect length for a kids' movie. Like it gets what you need to get across. Like 2 hours at most. Spider-Verse is too long. I think we can all agree on that. But yeah, leave a fun comment. Leave an essay. Maybe if we get enough comments, we'll do an entire comment based episode. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that happens. If you leave a comment on the video. We'll respond to it on the episode. Email the show. So with that ends our comment section because we only have 2 comments that are worth talking about. But leave a comment that's worth talking about, and we'll talk about it on the show. It'd be fun. Let's wrap.